Well, thank you, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for those of us that are still under jet lag. Okay, so really excited to be here and really so honored to be combining forces with you, Laura. We have already put some things on your table, so just in advance, know that it's going to be interactive, but we will make sure it's worth your while. I have brought chocolates from Canada. Does anybody like the Sustainable Development Goals pin? So here's your opportunity to participate and earn one from us. Really excited to get started. We know that we're between, the closing session and then there's cocktail. This is how, how to do a conference. So I think Laura and my energy, and I'm, voluntelling both of us that we're going to do our best to make sure that you stay engaged, okay, for the last plenary keynote session. So, the Great Resignation. Anybody, we're all aware of the idea. And I know in my role as, having since been that graduate student, I guess I kind of moved my way up to that organization. So CERIC, and I'm going to show you some of the resources that CERIC has, is one of our biggest national not-for-profit organizations in Canada that is mission to advance career development in Canada. So in my role, I do a lot of advocacy work. And when the term, the Great Resignation, first came about, we started getting media calls. I was up, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., across the country, talking about what it means and implications for career development professionals, but also for the everyday citizen. I wish I didn't have to talk about it, but the main messages from those media calls was the idea that with the pandemic, people are reshifting and rethinking their priorities. As much as, as a career development professional, as an employer, work is not a way for any individual to fully define themselves. You all know this. You're in this conference, which we'll talk about it some more, but from listening to your sessions for the last 2 days, that is a key message that is resonating, not being able to recognize other life experiences. And so what I want to switch our conversation to is the idea is, the actual topic of the session is, what if we rebrand it and talk about it as the Great Recognition? Being able to look at people's other life experiences outside of work and talk about things that matter to them. So what Dawn have said about, being purpose-driven, getting people to think about what are my values, interests, and skills? Why does it matter to me? And how do I craft my own life story related to that? So speaking of life story, I want you to hold on to that question, but one definition that we don't do a good enough job in our world is defining the word career. So if there's one thing you walk away from this 10-minute talk, it is this. It's the idea that career should, when we think about it, it should be the constellation of life roles that a person plays over their lifetime. It is their life story. Holy cow, if I get, a connection to this definition every time somebody have mentioned something like this in their presentation, I heard the word constellation being mentioned over and over again, I see images of constellations and I realize, you know what, this is why Dawn had me here. There's a few of us that have branded ourselves Dawn's Discoveries. Shout outs to friends that we had breakfast with this morning. But what I'd like to do now is show you a sample life story of a typical student that I work with. And I would say this is a mishmash of many student stories that I've come across in my journey. So I named this person Shauna. Shauna is inspired by the name is Shauna Corset, who is our board chair of the BC, my province, British Columbia Career Development Association, and she is a phenomenal individual. So, student Shauna, what can I tell you about her? If I draw out her constellation, well, Shauna is a student. She has aspiration to be in her final year to maintain very high GPA. We know that our students have worked hard for those that work in higher education, but there comes a point in her life where she's thinking, you know what? I love school. I'm not sure if I'm ready to stop going to school, but I'm not ready to go into graduate school either. So what do I do? Do I go into work, wait, come back, or do I go into more school? In either way, there's a financial consideration that she has to think about. And then there's also the employee side of things. So she is currently working part-time at an international company that adores the work that she's doing. She started as a co-op student and ended up having a permanent part-time position. So most recently, when her employer knew that she was graduating, they said, you know what, we're an international company. If you've got an aspiration to go travel, we've got districts and headquarters around the world. Just wanted to plant a seed with you if you're interested, okay? And then there's more, because it's her constellation of life roles. She's a community volunteer. In the area, region that I work at, the last couple of years we have been under a heat dome that killed over 600 people. I think 5 months later, November that year, we have had floods. So people have had to relocate as a result of all of these natural disasters. So Shauna thought to herself, you know what, I'm afraid of where I am in the world, and I need to lend a helping hand, being one of the more privileged people. So she started to volunteer for local environment and community efforts in order to help her neighbor and her community. And then the cool thing is, we'll come back to this. Shauna is also a gamer. As if, there's only 24 hours in the world, somehow she squeezed in some video games. And then finally, she's got responsibilities to her family. She is the oldest sibling out of 5 siblings. So being a role model to her 4 younger siblings, and also working with aging, interacting with aging parents and knowing that you have a responsibility to take care of them as they age. You can see this constellation doesn't do it justice. And when you think about it, the only role that she is going to get formal recognition for is that student one. So I wanted to show this, physical graphic of how much potential there is in the work that you all do to recognize all of those other things that a student can play. And if I can take this map one step further, which I do with students, I get them to draw it in my career development classes, is, you know what? Let's list the skills, the attributes, and the knowledge you've gained from all of those life roles. So if you're interested, I just published an article in the Asia Pacific Career Development Journal on how exactly might you do this exercise. And I know you're all digital savvy people. I am not so much. I borrow my son's crayons and get them to draw it out, because there's something to be said about physically looking at that. But maybe there's a collaboration with somebody in the room who can tell me, actually, you can put this digitally. So let's have this conversation later, okay? So typical life constellation. And what I want to share is that's only one student and one context. Individual context, yes. We have yet to look at the overall context. And most recently, my organization, CEREC, has published Careers in 2040. So we interview all across the country career development practitioners who are working with clients day in and day out, and we ask them, what are you looking at as key issues, people that are concerned and worry for the future? I know nobody can predict the future. So we picked 2020 because it's close enough for us to shape the future, but it's also enough for us to think that, there's some things that we can look at when we look back at the past that gives us indication. So hopefully none of these surprised you. And things that I want to point out to is in Canada, number 5, reconciling the impacts of colonialism. Susan is here somewhere. There she is. What a phenomenal session on reconciliation and being able to look at what that means for us, not just as a nation, but as a global community here. Things that should be of interest to you is number 8, education disrupted. So that section talks about employers. needing to work with post-secondary institutions, needing to work with anybody who is offering types of education, formal, informal, in better articulating what are the experiences, stories, and skills that are coming out of individual potential employees' experience that we should look at. I'm really concerned about number 9, declining mental health and well-being. I'm seeing an increasing number of students in my classroom wanting to talk to me not just about the course, because I tell them I teach a career development capstone course, but really it's a life design course, so you can tell me anything. So conversations have ranged from, application writing, how do I apply for jobs, but things like, I have no hope for the future. I am concerned about the state of the world, what I've inherited with the problems that I didn't create. What does that look like, right? So there's that emotional aspect of cultivating hope and resilience and getting them to think that, today, maybe you're walking away feeling that there's nothing you can do, but what is the one thing you can do today? And then let's build on that. I see some nods in the room, so I'm assuming that it resonates. Mina, thank you very much. That these are conversations that are happening, and maybe you don't work with students, but maybe you have kids, kids, right? So something that we need to think about, and I encourage you to look further in that session, in that section number 9. Okay, so lots of trends and things that we've already talked about. So I want to highlight that for your attention. So the ultimate question I want us to walk away with is how can, and some of you already have the solution, which I'm so pleased to see, how can recognizing individual life stories help them and help us as an entire community identify and activate ASK, attributes, skills, and knowledge. That's going to help advance the sustainable development goals. Because in those mental health conversations, and we can't shy away from career development in just thinking about individual contributions to the world. It's about their contribution to the community. And that's why there's a few of us in the career development world that's on the cutting edge of aligning career development practices with the sustainable development goals. And I think that's where, that's why I'm here. That's where we get to intersect and play a little bit. So very happy to have future conversations about that. So with that being the question, I'm sorry, this is a little bit blurry, but you will have a copy of this. World Economic Forum, and I show this not to, on last day to depress anybody, but I want you to come away with the idea of hope. So I look at this like Christmas presents every year because they publish it in December, January. That talks about in 2 years, what are going to be the biggest risks that affect all of us as human beings on this planet, and then projecting into 10 years. Green, you see a lot more environmental. There's also societal and geopolitical that are dominating these risks that we need to think about. What you might not be able to read is under 2 years, number 5. I consistently have people point this out to me when I'm presenting this, is number 5 is the erosion of social cohesion and societal polarization. Man, I can talk about this for the entire day and what we can do about it. But my intersect, how I come and bring into this is, again, the idea of career development. If we do a better job helping people look at their life stories, not just you as a student, but like you do so much more, and here's the potential that you have, and for us to understand each other and work together, I would think that it might not exist as number 5. And someone has pointed out in the last session when I did workshops for K-12 educators is, they said, if we tackle any one of these, it means that we are also going to have ripple solutions towards the others. But the main thing is we need to be able to listen to one another first. And it's so heartwarming to see that you are all doing that in this community. So my challenge to you is, how can we spread this forward and play outside of our sandboxes? That's a question I often think about, and that's why today I'm in the open recognition sandbox with you all. So it's the idea of no longer looking at things like a hierarchy, right? Valuing formal education first and foremost to this image that I like here, where the learner, the human being is at the center. And then, two ways to look at this is you can look at all of their life experiences that are surrounding them, and they have agency to tell us, to articulate what is meaningful to me, how is it meaningful to me, and how do I move it forward and articulating to the audience, employers, family members, people that need to know my life story. But then another way to interpret this image is, who are the people that are surrounding me in my ecosystem that's going to give me the support, empowerment that I need? And many of you are in this room doing this really important work. And so when we do great recognition well, things to recognize is that the wicked problems of our day, framed by the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, they all require interdisciplinary collaboration. So I want to make a pretty safe assumption that all of us are working toward quality education, which is SDG number 4. But we're all taking different shots at addressing that as a global issue, right? You're coming from the open education, open recognition and badging, recognizing people's array of life experiences. I'm currently coming from the more formal side of things with 4 credit courses within a higher education institutional setting, although I've started doing consulting and paper writing and policy work through my advocacy side of the life role as well. So we're all coming from different angles, and then there are policymakers that I find myself having increasingly more conversations, sometimes good, sometimes heated, on like, how should things be done and how do we work together on that? So wicked problems, interdisciplinary solutions. One, like if anybody is climate action for one, SDG 13, takes arts and humanities, takes the scientists, and it takes the social policy, you name it, interdisciplinary. And then career development and learning is a lifelong endeavor. I don't feel like this, I need to say anything more based on what I've seen, in that you see this, you do this in your work. And then the key is to help individuals articulate. So not just to say, you know what, here's the recognition for the skills that you have, but ultimately by putting them in the center, getting them to articulate this skill is important to me. Demonstrating resilience is important to me. And Simone, your presentation earlier talking about refugees, I started doing some work with settlement workers and hearing their stories of their work with refugees and having the opportunity to connect with the few. Despite not having that formal experience, I'm like, people, that's resilience right there. Why are we not talking more about that? Tell me about those stories of your experiences. And CEREC, 2 years ago, we facilitated 2 panels on talking about just that. How do we leverage those experiences? So I'll send them to you, Simone, and we can talk further, but anybody's interested, please email me. And then lastly, again, I'm on the news a lot talking about this. How do we help employers and organizations help with retention? And I stop them. I'm like, well, retention's only one side of the equation. When you say retention, you get to keep your employees and that's good for you. But why should employees stay? Why should they want to work for your organization? So you need to make a better, argument on like, here are the policies, the cultures, the environment, and the values that we're hoping to foster. And we certainly hope that you see yourself in it. And if you don't, but you like the work that we're doing, can we have a conversation about it? So there's the great resignation, quiet quitting, and then there's the stay conversation. What is it going to take for me as a supervisor, me as an organization, to help you see that you have a role and place here that allows you to be more of the holistic person that you are? So you're not just an employee. I'm sad to say, not a lot of companies do this well, but when they do, do, I'm like, have you taken a look at that? Have you taken a look at that? You know, I'm very heartened to see that there's an increasing number of small and medium enterprises that are doing some really good work in that regard. Okay, and so, sorry, my PowerPoint probably fell asleep. There we go. The Great Recognition, I want to share this quote. It empowers everybody. In career development, one of the things that I roll my eyes when I hear people say is like, oh, you have aspiration to climb the career ladder, right? I'm like, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So career ladder, going up the hierarchy is only one of the many narratives that you can have. I think we have a space and opportunity for people to invent their own metaphor. Maybe it's a jungle gym where you're moving from, you know, one course to another. You're demonstrating, you know, strengthening your skills because you might not have aspirations to climb. But the intersect, I think, between career development and sustainable development can be in, this is one of the quotes for me that really does it. The world doesn't need more successful people. And when they say successful, my sense is that it's not the traditional definition of success in climbing the ladder, getting that job, moving up your way. But we need to redefine what does it mean when we have more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of every kind. Ultimately, people that are genuinely and holistically happy, living well in their places and knowing where they want to go. And they might not choose to go anywhere if you're perfectly happy where you are, right? And I think that's the world. You know, when Dawn's introduction, how do we become a better world? Here's the solution right there. Help people redefine the idea of success, make it meaningful to them, okay? And so, an invitation for you, and thank you, Dawn, for entertaining. I came to Dawn, I think yesterday, within less than 24 hours, saying, hey, this, I can see the connection between why I'm here and this very conference and what's my way to connect with all of you. And I really think, even though I don't have, I wouldn't say I'm familiar with open recognition at all until, you know, coming to this conference and still just knowing so little. It's my career development expertise and background that we can work with each other. I'm hearing a lot of lobbying, influencing, working on grant proposals. So I think you can use my nerd power when it comes to career development. If you need anything from me and resources and understanding the contemporary world of career development theories and practices, I am your person. So, career influencer. 4 years ago, I graduated from my dissertation talking about the idea of career influencer. People who informally help individuals, in my case, it's students, with their career development, whether they know it or not. So I hope, but you know, in the last 10 minutes, I've been able to show you that you are all career development influencer. Without saying career, you are doing this work. And so I want to dedicate my very first batch that I have co-created, don't take full credit because Dawn did all the work on the back end of my life ever, to you all. And you can earn through this conference a career influencer batch. And I invite you to stay in touch. Let me know what resources you need. And so we can better help each other. And I think my expertise in career development is where I see myself coming in, that you already do this work. And then if I haven't done a great job convincing you, I just want to end with career development and the 8 guiding principles we have with CEREC. I've highlighted some key words, so the recognition of paid and unpaid activities, being able to generate meaning and knowledge from interests, values, and skills, making sure that the person is in the center, in the sense of it has to be self-directed, but also at the same time, it's shaped by people, in your ecosystem, making the most out of talent and potential. Sorry, that's hiding there. I will change that. But at the same time, we live in a very complicated world. So making sure that it still remains contextualized is really important. And then the continual adaptation and building that resilience, because their goals and the environment will continue to change. So nobody stays static. Okay. One last story I'll share before I pass it on to Laura is at Kwantlen Polytechnic University, we just recently inherited the entertainment arts program. So I got to go to the Richmond campus and hang out with a couple of entertainment arts friends and students. This is a game that I have played, holy cow, about 20 years ago. So this is a character from the role-playing game, but at the back, you'll see these notes. It speaks to every time a character enhances their life experience, they earn these circles and notes. And don't you love it when they see the connection in putting all of that together? Right? So, Saroj, I think you said this conference have happened for more than 20 years. This game was created in 2001. So I just thought, this is the group to talk with about that. Isn't that really timely? Right? So if you can guess the name of the game and how this works, I will give you an SDG pin. So that's my invitation, okay? So I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Laura. And thank you. Let's stay in touch.